movies are the American art. And what's amazing about that is that it is the pinnacle of all the other arts. You've got writing, you've got acting, you've got music, you've got a score, you've got art, set design, build. Every single, like when you go on to one of these top movies, like when I did Black Hawk Down, you have the best in the world. And these are guys that can go off and do sculptures that you'd be like, what is going on? Even makeup, they are the best of the best. And that is an American art form. It's the American art form, actually.
Ready to roll?
Yep.
All right.
Real Texan.
Why should this matter to real Texans? Thanks for joining this conversation with real Texans, talking to men and women in the Lone Star State who are doing great things to advance liberty and, in the case of my current guest, advance the state of the arts. Now, very excited to talk to a guy from Midland. Well,
The Midlands.
the Midlands. Yeah. All right. So you're not a classic real Texan, and that you chose here, which might actually make you a classic Texan when you look at William Travis and Sam Houston, these guys who came from somewhere else to find their future in the Lone Star State. So Matthew Marsden, you and I have been friends for a long time. It's kind of full disclosure. I was watching. Sometimes we'll start talking in code. I apologize for that. But what's so funny about you is I have this conversation with you, and we'll chat on the phone to each other or something, and then I will turn on some television show or movie, and there you are, and it's always very jarring for me. You know, your IMDb page reads like the list of every TV show and movie that people have enjoyed. A career that has seen you, you started off in England as a model, a singer, actor. Now you've thrown writer, director, producer into all of that. You also have an amazing family. And then you chose to be a Texan. Walk me through, kind of the end of your time, Coronation Street, been running for 500 years, it seems like, on British TV. Moving to the United States, California. What made you want to come to Texas?
That's a bit, it's always dangerous when you're asking an actor to talk about himself.
I know. And we've done this before, and as the word come out, I'm thinking, oh no.
You're like,
Here he goes.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
So, no, I mean, look, I think the most important thing to look at initially was how much I loved America from afar at the beginning, like my whole life. I didn't know why, right? I didn't know why. I remember getting a comic book. It was like an Archie comic book, I think it was, back in the day. And I remember looking through it and then getting to the back, and I was like, what are sea monkeys? Like, what is this? You can get them? And I just remember being, I know it sounds stupid, like just being absolutely enamored with these things in America. And of course, massive fan of anyone that was born in the 70s, massive fan of Rocky and Rambo. And that really inspired me, because I come from a very poor background. I say, like, I come from Mordor, right? It's literally where Tolkien based Mordor on. So what Rocky did for me was it said, if you work hard enough, you can succeed. And that stayed in the back of my mind, because in the UK, it's very much a class-based system.
Right.
So I had this dream of becoming an actor. You're right, I got in the biggest show on television in the UK, won the Best Newcomer Award in my first year. And then I left, did some music with another Texan that most people know, called Beyonce. I did a single with her. And then I did a movie with Michael Caine. I'm just going through this pretty quickly. Did a movie with Michael Caine, and that got some attention from Hollywood.
Right.
And they said, will you come over? And the first movie I got when I came here was Black Hawk Down, that won 2 Oscars. And that really, that changed my life. I was, as an actor, you tend to be like, when you're talking to someone that you're playing, like I was playing a US Army Ranger. So I was there at Fort Benning with these guys. And I said, why did you join? Like, do my actor thing. Why did you join? And the guy just turns around to me like dead straight and he said, "For freedom." And it was...
And this is not an ironic statement.
No.
This wasn't this is he was giving you this.
100% genuine. And I'll tell you this now, I mean, now Americans know this because of the advent of social media, but that mentality is kind of mocked in Europe, like freedom fries, Americans for freedom. And then I never bought into that, like I never bought into the mocking or whatever, because I'm like, look, it's the greatest country on the planet, right? So you can mock all you want, but they're still the greatest country on the planet. So, but to hear an individual say that to me, that I could tell was 100% authentic, I said, "You'd die for me, wouldn't you?" And he said, "Yes, sir." And that was the beginning of me going, okay, I need to find out everything I can about this country, because I wasn't taught anything about the United States at school. Like, the Brits don't tend to tell you about the wars that they lost. Right? So I started reading about the Founding Fathers, and it was just, first book I read was on George Washington. And then I read one on Benjamin Franklin, and then I read one on Thomas Jefferson. And I mean, for me, like, George Washington was just the most incredible human being, just unbelievable. And then you see why the revolution happened. You're like, hang on a minute. I'm feeling right now that I'm on these guys' side over here when really I should be on these guys. And I just fell in love with America. And that is when I started unpacking what the Constitution was and what it meant and why. I'd hear this all the time. Well, the Constitution, it's not constitutional. I'm like, what are they talking about? And then when you start going through the history of it, of the country, go through the Civil War and all that, and you realize it's a very special place, like definitely blessed by God. And I just fell in love with it. And it's just grown. My love for the country has grown and grown and grown. And as I saw the state that I was living in going further and further away from that dream, I was like, where is America? It's here. It's in Texas. And so that's where I chose to move to. I mean, it would have made more sense for me to go to Georgia where they're filming all these movies. But I was like, if everything goes to crap, where are you going to be? Where would you want to be? And I'm like, with Texans. And the other thing which was really remarkable, and it's so weird now, looking back on that mentality, you're told all the time, the South is racist. The South is racist. They're ignorant. They're this, they're that. This is like, I don't think a lot of people realize this. This is something that's just got this repeated. And when I first came to the South, I was like, these people are just the sweetest, kindest. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're tough, right? You got your tough Texans, but they would do anything for you. And I'm like, that's a lie. That's another lie. And I think each one of those instances was a moment where, the curtain was peeled back to see the truth about, I mean, you know all about this, about the way the media portrays certain people, certain parties and certain parts of the country. And I'd never really questioned it. So there was really nowhere else on the planet that I was going to end up but Texas.
So your career, I want to say it slammed into a brick wall. It's more like you threw a brick wall in front of yourself.
Yeah.
Because you're having quite a bit of success. I mean, your profile is going up and up and up. And walk me through the decision, kind of through the thought process, if there was one, where you decided, I need to tell people who I am. It feels like in Hollywood, there's the sense of, everyone's an actor, so everyone is always acting.
Yeah.
And yet, Matthew Marsden, I think the first time I became aware of you, you were talking about, that your faith is important. Mm-hmm. You're talking about your family, how important your family was to you. And that's not exactly a winning popular message in Hollywood, is it?
No, it's not. I think that...
No, this is before COVID. This is before you really upset me. COVID. You were talking about the importance of faith in your family. For almost for, I think, as long as I've ever heard of you.
Yeah.
You're talking about the importance of faith in your family as a touch point in your life. That's something that actors aren't. If you believe that, it seems like you're not supposed to say that.
Yeah, I think that what we've lost sight of as a society, as well as, certainly in my industry, is that as an actor, just say from an acting point of view, you should always desire to seek the truth. You seek the truth in the story, you seek the truth in the characters, and you pursue that to its logical end. And for me, I had a reversion to my faith, came back to God, and to me, it was just, it all came together at the same time, which is if I'm going to pursue the truth to its ends, then I have to. That's where I have to go. And that also includes when you're being interviewed and people ask you, I just tell people what I think.
Yes, you do.
Sometimes to my detriment. But when people are asking me, I'm like, these are the things that are important to me. These are the things that have affected me in a positive way. And I thought, like, it was more of people saying, well, all actors are like this. I say this all the time, not all actors are like this, because I felt unfairly kind of like categorized with a group of people. And at that period of time, and we can talk about this as well, is the way that the industry was going further and further and further away from the truth. The stories were going, and you can see it in the box office.
Right.
People stopped wanting to tell stories and like I say, follow the truth. For example, if you're a 110-pound woman, you are not taking down a 6'4", giant guy. You're just not going to do that. And that's just like a microcosm of the industry, because they don't even follow the storylines to their conclusion. So what I started finding in the scripts was I was finding these roadblocks, and they were like pushing in the message, and that was antithetical to what I believe. And I couldn't live with myself with that. I didn't want it to be, because look, when I did Rambo, Stallone said to me, "Remember, this is forever." He said that to me just before I take. I was like, "You got to be kidding me!" But it's true. It's true. Every single movie you do is forever, and I don't think people truly understand the impact of that, because sometime somebody is going to come across that film, however weird and wacky it is, and they could be influenced by it. And the left knows that very well. So I was like, listen, I am who I am, and I'm not going to hide my faith. It's not like I'm going to be crucified upside down, or I'm going to die like the apostles did. Just saying that I love God and that I love family, and it's the central part of my world. That's not difficult to do. I think it's the least I could do, right?
You talked quite a bit there about, you used this phrase over stories, truth. The results of a lack of stories and a lack of truth. Well, walk me through what, we're in June, we're in, blockbuster movie season, right? Where every movie is supposed to be, $1 billion return, all those kind of things. What is a blockbuster movie? We were chatting earlier. I went and saw the new Mission Impossible movie with my son. It was fun. Yeah, the story's a little weak maybe, but it was a fun movie. It was fun to watch that. And it's been a while, it seems like, since I've been to a movie that was just fun.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise wasn't trying to convert me to Scientology, and he wasn't trying to tell me that I was really 19 genders. He was just showing me that he can still jump out of an airplane.
Which is unbelievable.
I mean, he's unbelievable at 60, whatever.
He's the last great movie star. He's the last great movie star, and he really respects his audience. So I think, okay, so to talk about what is a blockbuster, you have to go back to the original blockbuster, which is Jaws. So if you look at Jaws, there was no summer blockbuster until Jaws happened. Now, that was a calamitous production. If ever you get a chance to read about it, it was a disaster. They built the shark and they tested it in fresh water and took it in seawater. I mean, it was a whole disaster. But what that was existing IP, which Peter Benchley's book,
right,
that was then converted to a movie by an amazing screenwriter, and then it was made into a movie by one of the greatest directors of all time with 3 of the greatest actors of all time in it. So movies are the American art. And what's amazing about that is that it is the pinnacle of all the other arts. Because
explain that for me.
Well, so you've got writing, you've got acting, you've got music, you've got a score, you've got art, set design, build. Every single, like when you go on to one of these top movies, like when I did Black Hawk Down, you have the best in the world. And these are guys that can go off and do sculptures that you'd be like, what is going on? Even makeup, they are the best of the best. And that is an American art form. It's the American art form, actually. So what we had was, number one, a meritocracy. So if you're really good at something, you got to the top.
Right.
And you had people that recognized that. And you also had a respect for what came before. There was an acknowledgement of you standing on the shoulders of giants, pioneers that have done things before. And what has happened in recent years is storyline has been pushed to the side. An agenda has been put in, and DEI has been put on top of that. So it doesn't matter how good you are, it's what color or gender you are. So they've prioritized all the wrong things. And again, talking about a pursuit of truth, those things cannot be true. They cannot be true. So when you watch a movie that is being cobbled together where they go, oh, I don't need to listen to that old guy Tolkien, some old dude from England, and then what does he know about story? I know better. There's no humility because they haven't had to earn it. You know what I mean? So if you come out of college and they go, hey, I'm going to give you $150,000 and you're going to come and be a screenwriter, that wouldn't you think that you were the greatest thing on God's earth? There's been no process for you to learn. And that's why you're seeing things fail. And the problem is, this is the genius about what's happening with Hollywood. I laugh at it because they're a bunch of idiots, and I actually hope they fail. I do, because I mean they've been so detrimental to. I mean, I grew up watching Rocky and was inspired to do what have people around the world now been inspired to do and be?
Right.
And that's coming from the United States, and that is actually evil, right? Because they haven't been telling truths. But if you think about it, if you are hiring someone on DEI, number one, you set them up for failure. That's one of the things. But also you can't fire them.
Right.
Because then you're racist, sexist. So they're in a complete chokehold now, and they don't know how to get out of it. And the only way that you're going to get something that's decent is when you have a megastar like Tom Cruise, who he's going to say, no, I am making this movie this way, the way that I want to get it done. It's all riding on me anyway, because people come see a Tom Cruise film, which, by the way, guess what? It's existing IP, because Mission Impossible is IP that's going to, even though they're reworking it. And so that's why you have him being such a success and Rings of Power and these other movies failing, because there's no respect, and they don't have a desire for truth because it's their truth, not the truth.
It's striking me that you can look at, in the 1960s, one of the campiest produced TV shows of all time, Star Trek, but the fellow who played the engineer for the next 20 years was listed as the number one influence for people who wanted to be engineers.
Yes.
According to the United States Navy, Tom Cruise was the reason they had this massive uptick in the mid 80s of people wanting to be Navy pilots. Again, these movies, this truth being told about how an engineer, nerdy possession, the guys, the slide rules can actually save the day. How, this very, intense job that, ages you like nothing else. Being a fighter pilot in the Navy is something glamorous. All these things, but these were hard truths, but yet people wanted to do them because they saw something real in that. And I'm struggling right now to think, who's the character on TV that I hope that my son wants to be like, or that my daughter wants. Those kind of those characters don't seem to exist at the moment, do they?
Well, part of that And again, if we're going back to the history of film, if you think about the movie stars of, say, the 50s, they're all veterans.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of people don't think about this. I mean, Audie Murphy was, To Hell and Back was the biggest movie for years and years and years.
Right.
What's his name? Jimmy Stewart. 52 bombing missions over
Brigadier General.
Yeah. I mean, you could go on at Steve McQueen. Even Clint Eastwood was a veteran. So you can look at all these guys, and they would never do a movie that would dishonor their country.
Right.
Never. And so what you had is it's the golden age of cinema, right? That is the golden age of cinema. And where you had great directors like Hitchcock working with someone like, what's his name I just said?
Jimmy Stewart.
The
Rear View.
Rear View. I mean, there are all these movies that there was a respect and again, a pursuit of truth, because when you've seen war, you don't want to come back and lie. You understand that there is evil out there, and you don't even want to entertain that. You don't even want to go there with that. And these guys saw real evil, and they understood the way the world could have been to the way it is. And they wanted to preserve that. And they did that through the film. So even if you look back at those movies throughout the 50s, it's only until you get almost into the 70s. And by the way, I can tell you this isn't a direct correlation between abortion and the way that children are portrayed in movies. I bet you've never thought of that, because up until the 50s, kids were seen as pesky. Oh, come here, you little rascals. Rawr, look at them pesky little kids. And then you start having things like Children of the Corn, Rosemary's Baby, The Exorcist. So all of a sudden, kids went from being pesky to being evil. That's a whole other thing. But cinema is the only medium where you get people in a darkened room and they're just like this, right? They're focused and you're delivering a message to them. And look, as I was saying before, I was actually speaking to my friend Matt Peterson about this the other day, is that the way that stories used to be told, even going back to being around the campfire, they'd be stories that would impart knowledge, like, don't grab the tiger by the tail, because this is what happens when that dude grabbed the tiger by the tail. They got eaten. Okay, well, I won't do it. Even you go to Shakespeare, what Shakespeare did was he would list at the beginning of his plays, this is what's going to happen. And the reason why he did that was because he wanted you to see the fork in the road where the decision took that person and the consequences of that decision. Plays were like that forever until Stanislavski, getting a bit nerdy, Stanislavski and Chekhov, and they started saying, listen, we're gonna start using emotions. And as you've seen in recent years, everything is about emotion. Nothing is about story. It's all about how do we manipulate their feelings. This is also true in politics. It's also true. And, I've said to you 1,000 times, right? Like, Republicans tend to think that good ideas will suffice. And the Democrats say, we need a star. We need a star, put them out there. And we need to it's funny that the two presidents that we've had that have probably been the most successful in recent times have both, one was a reality television star and the other one was an actor.
Yeah.
So, it is really important to understand media and the reason why it's deteriorated and why we need to reclaim it.
It feels like, at some point. Now, let's be clear. Acting has never been thought of as an honorable profession, right?
No.
You look in the Middle Ages, and actors were, worse than prostitutes.
Yeah, they were right there. The two oldest professions.
Yeah, two old professions, right? But certainly in America, where we got to reinvent themselves, a lot of things were reinvented in some ways. There was the same kind of respect was afforded to those actors reported to a lot of other professions. At some point, and I don't know when this was, maybe it's the 60s, maybe it's the 70s, there's kind of started being this kind of culture push where, nice boys and girls don't go into entertainment.
Uh-huh.
No, you need to go be a doctor, be an engineer, be a school teacher, be all these other things you can be. Don't be a journalist, of course. That's worse than being an actor. Don't be a lawyer, worse than both of those. But we've told people who might come from good families, might have an idea of a sense of eternal beauty. So, I don't know. We don't do that sort of thing. Good people like us don't do that sort of thing. And then we were kind of surprised that Hollywood is full of a bunch of really bad people.
Yeah, I know. It's surprising, isn't it?
Yeah. How do we encourage young people who have a view of the world that's grounded in truth, that's grounded in eternal beauty? How do we encourage those folks to enter this and enter into the cultural fight in entertainment?
It's a brilliant question, actually, and something that as a Gen Xer, like we are kind of like the Gen Xers are the last guys to be able to kind of sneak in before it was completely taken over by the left. So there's a few of us in there.
Mm-hmm.
But if you were to say to me, would you send your kids off into acting? You know what the answer would be? Absolutely not, right? Because I know the industry. But that is because we're not giving them the platform. And we have to recognize that truth and beauty are combined. We need both. We need beautiful things. We need beautiful pictures to inspire us, like it's a reflection of God's creation, right? So we need to do that. We need to tell great stories of great people. I mean, you can look, I think there's probably been only 5 movies made about Medal of Honor recipients. There should be all of those. I actually pitched it once. I wanted to do a Medal of Honor series with all, but you've got to give it its due. You got to give these people the kind of movie that they deserve. And unfortunately, like you say, I think that a lot of people that can fund these kind of things don't understand it. And for some reason, they recoil from it. And look, a lot of the times, rightly so. But it's a dream of mine. Like I have one daughter that does ballet. They both of my daughters, both 2 of my 4 daughters, love acting. Mm-hmm. And I've steered them away from it because I can't protect them. But I've also pitched many people, hey, listen, this needs an infrastructure so we can make beautiful things. And we have to. And the funny thing is it's true when people go, Mel Gibson's doing, everyone like freaks out. Or do you remember when that people pretend that it doesn't matter? But if you remember when Clint Eastwood went to the Republican convention,
right,
everyone lost their minds. Like, it's Clint Eastwood. But there's nobody else coming up. Because I know, because I opened my mouth about
Clint
it.
Eastwood, 95 years
old. He's 95, but he's still making movies. He's still amazing.
Yeah.
But there's no one there that is going to give them a leg up. And we've kind of like, the disappointing for me for conservatives is we kind of go, bless you, you did a little movie. Oh, and we don't, in that instance, we don't go, no, we made the greatest movies of all time. We need to be making To Hell and Back. We need to be making The Wizard of Oz. We need to be making these incredible movies because we have truth and beauty. That's what we look to, because we look to God. And the reason why right now the left is failing is because they don't recognize that. They don't recognize truth and they don't recognize beauty. What they're doing is they're doing this kind of bastardized, kind of concept of it. And that's why it's not working because, again, as I said before, people know it when they see it and they know what it doesn't look like. And it's the majority of stuff that they're putting out. It doesn't resonate.
It feels like we're kind of, with technology, we're running headlong into the space where, currently to make one of these big movie that's going to give attention, you're talking $500 million, $500 million between production and marketing and those things. But with the, increasingly realistic, increasingly just mind-blowing AI, and where, maybe you don't need an actor anymore. Maybe you don't need to build a set anymore. Maybe you don't, all these kind of things, that it feels like there is an inflection point accompanying where the barriers to entry are going to be different. Is that fair? Is that you're going to need an actor, you're going to need a writer, you're going to need someone with a vision, you're going to need those things. But the but the things that cost a lot, the guy holding the reflective mirror, or the sheet behind the camera, all those kind of things, you may not need those at some point.
No, you don't. I mean, even now, you've got a better camera in your back pocket than most people had for human history, right? Like I found that the iPhones or the Galaxies, those Androids, they're excellent cameras, and the price point for entry has gone down. I do think though that there is a little bit of people thinking, oh well, it's kind of like I say it's like American Idol,
yeah.
Right? Everyone thinks they can sing. Right? They're like, I'm in the shower.
To be clear, I cannot. I know I can.
Well, people are in the shower. They're like, I sound just like Adele, and you're like, actually, no, you don't. You sound like the garbage disposal. But there is this like weird thing, and people feel the same about acting. And I saw this all the time. Like, it is actually a skill to do it well. It really is a skill. But let me talk about the budget a little bit on these movies. A lot of these movies are high budgeted because, number one, the overheads. Number two, they don't do it right the first time. Mm-hmm. Right? What you would normally do is get a tight script, mm-hmm. and then you'd shoot the script. Like, when Clint Eastwood gets a script, he doesn't change it at all. If he doesn't like the script, he thinks there's changes, he moves it. He goes, not doing it. And then he'll get the script and he will shoot the script, and if he gets you, you're done, and he moves on. So a lot of the reason for the budgets being so high on these movies is because they've made just fundamental mistakes, and they don't look at it like a business. It's because if you were running it like a business, you wouldn't DEI the people all the way to the top, right? You don't DEI engineers. Well, I hope you don't anyway. I mean, they tried to do it with the planes, right? But you don't do that because it has real world consequences. So actually, even though they think it doesn't in film, it does, because you get a blown budget because, someone walked in the back of set, or the lighting wasn't right, or they didn't check continuity, and there isn't that attention to detail. So you can actually keep it, much lower, the budget much lower, regardless, just by starting with a great script and getting the right actors and not wanting to do, these massive movies. I watched, last night, because I was like, I need to get a workout in, and I went on the bike, and I was watching Captain America, which isn't, I'll call it The Falcon, Brave New World, and the opening is just a parody of a Marvel movie. It's just so bad, so cheesy. They had all the money in the world. Anthony Mackie's a fabulous actor. He's very, very good, and I'm just like, how can this be so bad? And there's also that kind of like, when you've got someone in there making the decisions and they don't know what they're doing, you have to go back and reshoot and back and reshoot and back. So it just blows the budget up. So there is a market for there's no reason why you can't do a decent action movie right now for $20 million. And people think that's a lot of money, but if you go into production, they'll spend that on a commercial.
Right.
And then that's the reality.
And it's important to note, I mean, when you talk about that you can make an action movie for $20 million, you can make a heart-pulling drama for a few $1 million. You've been doing this.
Yeah, I've done it.
You've done it with I Am That Man. You've done it with Protocol 7.
Yeah.
So it's not a theory. You know that you can make movies.
Well,
it's just a question of people being willing to do it. And in some cases, it feels like there's kind of this inferiority complex that kicks in of, if I'm not going to spend $500,000 on a movie, is it really a movie?
Yeah, no, it's right.
So let's go burn a pile of cash.
Yeah, no, and also what they'll do is they'll go, and I see this all the time with investing. What will happen is, let's say Michael's got a special affinity for Sam Houston, right? I'm going to come up and I'm going to go, hey, I've got a Sam Houston movie, right? You want to do it, right? And you're like, Sam Houston movie, I want to do it. And then all of a sudden, it's very peculiar in movies. People just go, bah, and the business sense just goes out of the window, and they go, let's make this film. And then they'll give their money to somebody who did a student film once, or as a cousin, they held a camera, or whatever it is. And you're like, guys, don't do this, because what happens is investors then get burnt. And also, you wouldn't do that if you were having your heart operated on. you wouldn't be like, oh yeah, you know, you got an affinity for heart surgery.
I
Come on.
saw Matthew cut a steak once. He must do well at this.
Well, you know, I don't cut steak. I eat it like that, you know. But no, you're absolutely right. And you know, it can be done in the budget. The issue becomes. There's the other side of it is where we nickel and dime on the conservative side, right? That people go, oh, well, it's a conservative thing, so let's not pay them a lot of money for it. And I'm like, if you're on the left, it's hard to explain to people how much money these people are getting paid.
Right.
It is hundreds of millions of dollars. And what do? Then all of a sudden, they give money to political campaigns because, you know, oh, you're in the crowd. And that's why we don't have many conservatives, because it's a weird thing. Conservatives, if they know that you're a conservative in Hollywood, you are absolutely blacklisted. Now more people are coming out. I was the OG, right? But more people are coming out saying it. I remember when it happened to me, people were like, you're lying. It's just because you're not very good. I'm like, I won this, I did this, I was in National Youth Theatre when I was 15, but like you can't put that forward as a reasonable argument, but they do it. And it's a major problem because we get blackballed, they come out, they can say whatever they want, and they get more work.
Right.
And so there's not a motivation to fund.
We're not protecting our own.
We're not looking after our own. And this is a problem, I think. I've seen it in business as well. Like, you know, we should be supporting people that are aligned with us. This is the way it is now. The libertarian, like, live and let live thing, it just doesn't wash anymore. You can't do it.
You know, we've got now moving to Texas guys like Zachary Levi, another fellow amazing career, very talented, who then made the mistake of admitting on social media that he was a Christian and was kind of concerned about some of the COVID stuff, and poof,
that's it.
You know, they shut down a movie franchise because of it.
Yeah.
You know, you've moved to Texas. Is there a sense to which maybe getting Hollywood, or excuse me, getting the movie industry out of Hollywood might help? Know if you can put that industry among real people? Would that help? When, you know, where not everyone's at the gym trying out for the same part?
Yeah, no, I mean,
stockbrokers, is that part of it?
I don't think so. I think that the dirty secret about Hollywood is whoever has the money has the control. It's as simple as that. I personally do not think that Texas should be bringing films to Texas. I know that might sound completely counterintuitive for me. I don't think they should be doing it because I don't think the people that are coming here have Texas values. That's just my opinion. I mean, I actually broke down, I think I showed you it, I broke down a whole way of how you could incentivize films to be made here, because I know people go, oh no, I don't want to get involved. But if you ever just go to the end of a Marvel movie and look at how many people work on those films, it is pages and pages and pages and names. And that is a force multiplier into the economy. Like, I think it's something like a 10x into the economy. So it'd be very good for us here to have films made here. But you want having the right films made here, and you don't want people to stay, quite frankly, because we're already, as much as people think that Texas is a red state, I'm like, is it really? Are you really fighting hard enough? You know all about this, right? You're out there all the time fighting. So I think that what would be useful is coming to people like me and saying, okay, how would you change this and give us a ramp up to making films? And, you know, certainly, because I'd say admit a script, let me look at the script, let me see, okay, all right, we can get this made, we're going to give you the tax breaks, whatever that is. Because again, I know people go, we shouldn't be giving any money to them. I'm like, the money that's coming in is way more important than that money that's being given out. But I think that if you do that and you say, listen, if you are going to change this because they can, then you're going to have to pay us tax breaks back. Like, we're not doing this. And there is a way of doing, I think, curating the stuff that's being done here. I do think, look, I think that it needs to start theatre, things like ballet. It's culture. We need that. We need to encourage that, but we need it to be a place where our kids can go and not be predated on, not be indoctrinated. But, you know, you could say this about schools. I mean, we've had this conversation about certain colleges, like what is going on there. And these places are meant to be conservative. And I know it probably better than most that they never sleep. They never sleep. Like people, we kind of go, oh, you know, we won an election. It's great. Let's put our feet up, have a barbecue. And they're like, okay, let's go this way. They blocked us here. Let's go this way. And it's nonstop. And that is, it's very important when it comes to the arts, is to be able to curate what is the actual material for number one, and the people that are coming in. Super, super important, because you're never going to put that genie back in the bottle again once they come in. So I'm actually, you know, with the guys coming down, they're like, Texas tax breaks. I'm like, absolutely not. Even though it's kind of like cutting my own throat, but I think it's best for Texas. It's my own personal opinion. But there is a route to it. It just depends if people are willing to go there. You know, Texas could make the best movies in the world.
Okay, I want to go back to Matthew Marsden for a second. You said something at the out front, which was, I think you'd mentioned this to me before, that it was kind of Rocky that in a lot of ways kind of inspired you, both America and in pursuing acting. Tell me quickly, or maybe not so quickly, which is asking you to say something quickly is crazy. But, you know, tell me about, though, the opportunity you then had to get to work with Sylvester Stallone, you know, the Rocky, you know, tell me about that.
Yeah, that was kind of, it was one of those moments. Like, I'm totally uncool about those moments, just so you know. I'm not like, oh, well, whatever. I'm like, you know, it's Stallone. And so I got a phone call from my agent. It was kind of funny, the phone call, because he called me up and he was like, Matt, they're doing another Rambo movie and they want to see you for it. And I'm like, they're doing a Rambo movie? Like, what? And he's like, you want to do it? I was like, what? Yeah, of course I want to do it. Of course I want to do it. And so I get, I can't remember whether I got the script or I got the sides. I got sides and I got the script. That's it. I got the script. And it was, the character schoolboy was not what I was going up for. I was going up for Graham McTavish's role, what Graham got in the end, which was Lewis. And because of doing Black Hawk Down and all these other movies, I was very familiar with the special operations community. I know what they're like. I know the way they behave. So I'm reading the script and I totally played it down. Like, they totally played the role down. And everyone else is like, what, you bit. And I was like very calm, because I know these guys, that's not the way they behave. Mm-hmm. And then I get a call and they're like, Stallone is going to call you, right? Are you free? And I'm like, let me think about it. Yes, I'm free. Of course I'm free. So anyway, the phone goes and it's Stallone, and he's like, hey, can you come and hang out tomorrow? I'd like to meet you. And I was like, no, I can't. Of course I said yes. I was like, yeah, okay. So I go around. It was kind of amazing, because I walked into his office in Beverly Hills, and of course there's like Cobra, Rambo, Rocky, and inside I'm like, no way. Like, yeah, 'cause I grew up on these movies, right? These are the things that made me fall in love with America, you know? And it's funny because, you know, you talked about the influence about America around the world, and the influence that movies have had. I remember thinking, well, America's going to win any war they're in because they have John Rambo. They have guys like John Rambo. Like,
Right.
And let me tell you something. There's a bunch of people around the world that were very, very worried because they thought that and we do, but it's a motivator or a demotivator, I think, if you want to cause trouble. So anyways, I walk in there and he comes out and he's just like this big. Like, I remember thinking he's like this table. He's like walking along these giant shoulders. And everyone goes, oh, he's really short. I said, he's not really short. I mean, he's shorter than me, but, you know, we're tall guys, right? But he comes out and I sit and I'm talking to him in his office. And he's got this giant, like, as he would, you know, Stallone would have a very thick, heavy wooden table. And we start talking about crossbows and, you know, recurve bows and velocity of, weapons and calibers and all this. And we're talking. I think he's probably a little bit shocked that I knew so much about it. And he knew everything. He was like, this is the velocity of this arrow, given this. And then he gets up from his chair and he kind of walks over to the DVD player, and he walks kind of like this. He's got this huge shoulder. He walks over to the DVD player, puts this DVD in. And he goes back and sits down and he goes, I want to show you something. And I go, okay. And he presses play and it's ba 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 ba. And I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. I am watching the trailer of Rocky Balboa with Rocky Balboa. Like, what is going on in my life right now? And I'm trying to be cool, right? And the funny thing is, I watched the trailer and I know he's back because people forget that he was in the wilderness for a long time. He wasn't doing anything. Right. And I saw the trailer and I was like, this is fantastic. And I looked at him, I looked across him like that. And I went, and he goes, he knew he was back. So that was it. And then I get the call and he said, I want you to play Schoolboy, not Lewis. And in the original script, I took over the franchise. Schoolboy took over the franchise from Rambo, and Rambo became like Troutman. And I was like, you gotta be kidding. Like, this is crazy. This is the moment, right? Like, this is, I'm going to be the new Rambo. And he said, no, we're going to change it. He's going to be British. And this is what makes him, one of the reasons that makes him so brilliant. I turned around to him, I said, look, this character, just for people that don't know this, there is a lot of animosity between the British Parachute Regiment and the Royal Marines. Like, they literally fight each other all the time. And that is the special boat service and the special air service. Like, normally they filter up, like Rangers going to Delta and, you have the SEAL teams. And so I said, you've got him as a SEAL, why don't you make him SBS? And that will make me and the SAS character have a little bit of tension. It was immediately in the script. He took the good idea and he was like, boom, done. And then I got yelled at by the prop master because he was like, Marsden, I had to change all your clothes because you said that that's not what you wear. I was like, I'm just telling you, dude, British do not wear, it was digital camo he gave me. And I was like, we don't wear digital camo. So anyway, and it was just an amazing experience, and he's a real patriot. Like, he really, really loves his country. And I was like, only in America could I grow up loving Rocky and Rambo and then 25 years later save his life in a movie. I'm just like, greatest country in the world. Yeah. So
the other story I'd like for you to tell if you can is talking about working with Michael Caine, truly one of the most, maybe one of the best actors of our generation. Amazing fellow. Tell me about getting to work with him.
So I heard that there was this movie going to be made called Shiner, and it was about a young boxer and his dad was played by Michael Caine. So I went off and I was very fortunate that I had a friend of mine that was the WBC super middleweight champion of the world. So I'm like, hey, can I come and train with you? So this was before I got the role. So I went with him, and it was literally like Rocky because he used to train in a power station. So, you go in and it'd be all grimy and everything, you get in and proper boxing. And so I trained with him, and then I went up for the audition, and the director said, can you box? And I said, I will fight any actor that you bring in for this role. So, all right. So anyway, I got the role, and I remember the first time. So two things happened. Like, first time you do a read through. So you sit around a table, like your table you've got out there, and all the cast sit there, and you run through the lines to hear it out loud. And I say my lines, and then I hear this like, Juno, you go, and I'm like, that guy sounds just, no, it is him. It is him. It is him. Because I thought, as a Brit, you're so used to hearing that voice. Right. You're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off. It's that kind of thing. And then the other thing that happened to me, which was amazing, was I'm doing my first scene, and it's on the top of a building, and it's with Michael Caine, right? So I go up there, and I'm nervous, right? Because he's an icon.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, he goes, do you mind if I do my shots first? I was like, no, that's fine. Because some people like warming up. Some people want to be fresh. So no, I didn't care. Either way, I'm like, whatever. And he goes, all right, let's run the lines. And I run the lines with him. And I was like, all right, like, we're not that good. I expected more, And then they went, turnover. Because over here they say rolling, over there they say turnover. So turnover and action. And then he just became 12 feet tall. And I remember like watching him in the scene. And then he stopped and I went, oh, I got a line. I totally forgot. And I'm sure it's happened to him 1,000 times, and it's an interesting story. Another story with that, actually, I went up to him towards the end of the filming and I said, Michael, have you got any tips for me? And he goes, you're doing just fine, son. Like, that's what he said to me. Like, no tips. I'm like, okay. And then I saw he was on the equivalent of like Jay Leno a few years later. And he said, I never give acting tips. He said, because I asked an actor for tips once and he said, yeah, quit. And he said, so I don't give anyone any tips anymore. And I was like, okay, so there you go. Yeah. But he was,
and it was true. It was you told
yeah.
me.
And he's very kind, very down to earth guy. I mean, we were filming late one night and I saw him like looking at doing this to his suit. And I was like, because, you're on set, he's playing my dad or I'm playing his son. So, we got the rapport, like we're over that kind of like part. And he goes, I'm going to wear this to the Oscars. And he did. And he wore it when he got Side of House Rules, when he won the Oscar for Side of House Rules. And I was like, I cannot believe this. Like, so down to earth, like such a great guy. And that was one of those moments where you're like, yeah, it's okay to meet your heroes because he's a great man. Yeah.
Okay, so you asked him, so I will ask you on behalf of others. What tips would you give to folks who are thinking that maybe that they want to move into the entertainment industry? Maybe they feel called, or in fact they have the talent. What would you encourage them to be thinking, looking at, questions they should be asking?
All right, it's a great question again. I think for actors, study. Acting school is a complete waste of time. I'm just telling you, as in acting class, it's a very American thing to go, I need to be doing class. I'm like, okay, so
we're very German in that regard.
Yeah, no, it's kind of weird because I'm like, you don't become a lawyer and then go back to school for law, like just to brush up on law, or like every week or 3 times a week. You go off and you do it. Mm-hmm. So as long as you're doing it, you are perfecting your craft. But I will say this: the reason why most people say why Brit's so good is because there's a filter, right? So you study. And then if you're no good, you're like, you're no good. That's it. You're out. You're not getting any work. But then you go to like regional theatre. Then you might get into national theatre, like go down to London. And then you might get into TV. And then you get into British films. And then you get into American films. And what I did was that, right? So I studied. I got into National Youth Theatre then, which is like the premier thing for young people, which really I shouldn't have got into it in the sense that I was from a very working class background. I had no money. I had to go and get a grant to go. I had to go and ask for some money because I couldn't afford the $300 it cost to do the course. But I ended up doing it, and that opened a lot of doors for me. But I did years and years and years of training. So when I got on set, and this is why a lot of the big directors use British actors, is because they'll say, okay, I need you to get there and say your line. And the British actor will get there and he'll say his line. But the American actor, for the most part, I'm not talking about the guys that are trained in New York, will be like, what's my motivation? I'm like, you're getting paid now. Get over there and say your darn line. So I think for me, it's like, be aware of your limitations, I think. That's not saying don't let anyone else tell you what your limitations are. You be aware of your own limitations and really study and get good at what you do. I studied Stanislavski, which is he's the OG like acting coach. But I say this, all this kind of like, I'm getting into character and like, when you're doing a movie with Michael Bay and he says to you, Matt, there is an F-16 coming over in 1 minute. What I want you to do is say your line when I do this. You are not taking time to get into character, Michael. You're like, I better say that line or everybody on set is going to be looking at me going, you really made the jets go back round again. So you just have to understand that, where you are at that moment and what is needed for that role. So I would say I don't want to discourage people to go into it because we desperately need people in the medium. We desperately need musicians. We desperately need actors, in the art. We need artists. We need people to inspire. But be realistic, but then work really, really hard and actually never, ever, ever take no for an answer. Like, you've got to be hard. And it's one of the things my mom said to me. It's funny because, my mom says sometimes, maybe you shouldn't like talk about certain things. Like, I'm like, listen, you gave me the Constitution to get up every time I get knocked back. Mm-hmm. And now you want me to hold my tongue on things that really matter to me, like God, like my family, like my country. It doesn't work. It's a whole package. So my mom's kind of gone, all right. Yeah. So it is really a determination. And I think that it really is like 99% perspiration, 1% inspiration. Like, just keep going, just keep going, just keep going. Again, it's hard because if you're terrible at it, then you should really get the message. But if you're getting knocked back for other reasons, you just got to keep going. And by the way, I'd say this, do not wait for Hollywood. Write your own stuff. Do your own stuff. Go make a small movie. Go grab your friends. Like, be creative. And don't go the TikTok route, right? Go look at the greats. Go and look at what Spielberg's done. Go and look at what Hitchcock did. Go and look at what Ford did. Watch The Searchers, like, look at these movies, because a lot of the great directors now, if you look at Quentin Tarantino, he's got encyclopedic knowledge of all these directors that went before him. So do your homework. Like, don't expect to just rock up because you look good and you're going to get a job, right? Because there's 1,000 guys like you. There's 1,000 gals like you. You gotta have just something different.
Last question for you. How can the rest of us be better consumers of the visual arts?
Oh, that's a really tough question. I mean, I think that demand excellence and demand truth. So there's a lot of people that just go, I'm going to go, and I understand, I do think we should support people like us. I think that is really important. I say this all the time. I'm doing this kind of, you've seen this, I'm doing it over and over on X, is I keep saying to people, will you come over and subscribe to my channel? Mm-hmm. I'm not doing it so I can get people to subscribe to my channel. I've said this multiple times and people are like, you begging? I'm like, no. What I'm illustrating is we don't support our own. It's a clique. We don't look after our own. We are not looking to build a community. And that comes from the great thing about America is that rugged individualism, that frontiersman spirit. There are no individuals in a foxhole, right? And we're in a war right now. We're in a war for our culture, and we're in a war for what it means to be an American. So we have to band together and support one another. And that can be as much as, a retweet or a subscription that doesn't cost you anything. But understand that, be discerning with what you're consuming, but also you got to look to people. Like, there's the reason people come to Texas Scorecard is because they trust you, because it's authentic. And then, they should probably look and see the people that you have on and think, there's probably a reason why they're on, and support those. And it doesn't have to be financial, but, I think this goes further than just the arts. It goes into community, it goes into politics, that we were on the brink of losing this country. We are on the brink of losing Texas. And everyone needs to understand that great people gave us a wonderful gift, and it's up to us to keep it. And the days of letting other people do it for us are gone. Like, everyone has to be involved. So that's what I would say. Like, just curate what you're doing. Try and support those that are struggling to make it, and yeah, look for truth and beauty in everything.
Outstanding. Matthew Marsden, thanks for your time. Appreciate it, my friend.
Thank you for having me.
And thanks you for joining this conversation with Real Texans.